I couldn't get a job. I couldn't have a conversation with somebody without thinking I was having a heart attack, a brain aneurysm, all this stuff that your mind is so powerful what it can make up. I'd been getting eviction notices because my money ran out. I'd sold all my stuff. The only thing I had left to my name was a pistol. And sat on a cliff one night just saying, I'm of no earthly good to anyone. So I'm going to do everybody a favor. And I'm going to pick this particular spot on this cliff. I'm going to kill myself. I'll fall in the ocean. Nobody will ever hear from me again. My kids don't have to see my body. All of those thoughts.
Yes.
And I heard audibly the voice of God say, not yet. That we all have something that God put on our heart that only we can, you can, the person that's watching this, that only you can deliver to the world.
Yes.
At your best, right? There's this deep understanding and yearning for us to be able to bloom into the person that we know and God knows that we were meant to be. But there is some shedding. There's some things that you have to get rid of.
Hey, guys, it is Allison. I am the host of your show, Allison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you today? I am excited about this particular guest. I'm going to read to you about this badass because this guy's a really incredible person for you guys to listen to. What's going to happen, to pre-frame it for you, what's going to happen on this episode is you're going to meet a man who has walked through tragedy into incredible triumph, and how this man is so incredibly successful, but not in the way that you would imagine. Yes, successful financially. Yes, successful in his intelligence. Yes, successful in overcoming things, but he's successful in this unique way, in the way that he helps people find their freedom. And I'm not going to say more about that. I'm going to read what his bio is, but I want you guys to put on your seatbelts, sit back, take notes, because when I listen to Jason speak, I'm changed, and you will be too. You're going to have new questions for yourself that will drive a new awareness and probably a new direction in your life. And I feel like that is what, when I listen to him, that is what happens to me. So I'm looking forward to that transition for myself today. So let me read about Jason. Jason Sisneros is a hard-nosed, battle-tested CEO who has taken the science of performance and the art of leadership to the next level. He is regarded as one of the brightest minds in business and innovation. Among his past and current clients are Fortune 500 companies such as Nike, Comcast, and Microsoft, and he has turned around more than 100 small to mid-cap companies, earning him the moniker, the architect, because of his unique ability to build systems and processes that optimize each one for max cash flow or exit. From his best-selling book and his more than 3,000 plus presentations on leadership and business to his career as the top speaker in the Tony Robbins organization, successfully exiting over 24 of his own companies and over 100 corporate turnarounds, Jason has always looked to identify needs, to find solutions, and create competitive businesses for entrepreneurs who want to change. But there's more to Jason that I just want to share. And this is his words. I help people build machines, businesses that create the cash required to achieve the definition of freedom. In my career as a business strategist, I have been blessed to be mentored by giants. It's now my turn to pay it forward by mentoring others. Business is the most incredible tool anyone will ever find to change their family's future. Knowing the rules of the game and the pitfalls to avoid is priceless. With many battle scars, I now passionately guide businesses through treacherous waters to safety and success. This country and this game called business create a unique opportunity to achieve economic freedom, an opportunity not just for the elite, but for a kid like me, who was nobody from nowhere on the road to prison or death. My family was desperately poor, and my adopted father was a career criminal. Nevertheless, mentors steered me toward business, education, and most importantly, radical personal responsibility. These principles made all the difference. With excess, we are duty bound to serve. I love this shit. This is so cool. I have dedicated my life and excess to proudly volunteering as an undercover operator and helping to fund a child sex trafficking rescue unit called CERT Ministries. I am very involved in anti-domestic violence causes and also serve as a CEO of Feed a Billion, which provides meals to the hungry. Ethical capitalism changed the world for the better, and business owners are some of the most generous people on earth. The better we do as a business community, the better off our world. I cannot wait to hear this man speak. I promise you, you will be transformed. And without any further ado, here he is. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Allison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. As I mentioned in the bio, I talked about this man right here. And in my explanation about all the incredible things he's done and what he's gone through, I just want to give my little side note about it, because I feel like you're a hero. So I met this man, Jason, in Costa Rica at an event where he was speaking. And he spoke about such incredible things. I felt like I was so completely I was left with questions. I was motivated. I cried. Even when I hear him speak, like tears come to my eyes of what he's been through, but then his transformation is unbelievable. So my pre-frame for you is I ask that you just sit and, if you can, take notes, because I find myself wanting to write down the quotes that you say, because they're transformative. And I think that they have a spiritual power infused on them and in them. And I do believe that this man's life has been peppered with, it's a mission from God, I do believe, in 3 different areas. So, and that's how I saw it. I saw these 3 areas. So this is what I'm going to do with Jason today. I'm going to highlight 3 areas that I feel are so poignant in his life. One is his unimaginable childhood and the transformation that he moved through these experiences and had this pivotal moment on a cliff. And then how he took that moment, and he went from being a person, a young man who was victimized, into a person who transformed through ownership into being this astute businessman, helping people like me and a lot of you guys who are on here into finding the definition of freedom, and then taking that freedom and creating abundance to then transform and take that excess and change lives. And when you hear this story, you're going to be blown away, because every part of it is magnificent. I'm just going to mention one thing. I said I'm going to try really hard not to interrupt him and ask questions, because I'm a question asker, so that's why I said it all now. The other thing is that I had an unimaginable childhood. And the reason I'm starting like this is I want you to know that, Jason, I had an unimaginable childhood to others. And you talk about everyone has a story. Yep. And a transformation for me was a supernatural moment where God came to me and said, "You have hidden your talent for far too long. It's time you share. Your education is not your 8 years of college and all this experience. It is the climbs that you made out of all these different things, and that have brought you to a place, and now you can help other people." So I feel like that I want you to share your story and how you did that.
I love that. And you're first off, thank you for having me on your show, and thank you for doing the show. You know, a lot of people talk about wanting to make a difference, and it takes action. You know, this is not part of your normal regime, and it's not, you know, you're doing this out of the passion of your heart and to give back and to make sure that other people have, you know, the right information. So thank you for doing that. It means the world to me, and to I'm 100% sure your viewers. So thank you.
Thank you for thanking me.
And there's so much to respect about you, just getting to know you, you know, in Costa Rica, and what you do for a living and how you show up for people. It's phenomenal. You know, so I was excited when you invited me to come on your show, I was excited to say yes and to be here.
Thank you so much.
So, you know, there's an aspect, you know, and I think we may have spoken about this a little bit in Costa Rica, where there's an aspect of people, I'll tell you my story, but for your viewers, it really is, I only do this stuff because of you. And I mean, when I say you, the one, right? When we go to rescue girls, it's about the one. When we're helping business owners, it's about the one. You know, one of my greatest mentors said that business is not a bathrobe. One size does not fit all. And so these conversations are really, and other conversations, if you heard other conversations that I've heard, the people that I've mentored under, the books I've read, the things that I've lived, is to say, what can I reach into their life and pull out for myself in application in my own life, right? There's plenty of sob stories out there. There's plenty of stories of real tragedy and real, you know, trauma. And I don't want to add to that lexicon with my story. It's literally just an example, right?
I get it.
For all of us to say, oh, really, at the end of this, if we do a really great show, Allison, it's going to be like, if that guy can do it, I can.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Okay, I got to say something. This is my first interruption. I just want to say something about that. I am not in any way trying to showcase like victimization and all that. I can't stand that.
Yeah.
But your description and how you took it, that's really the point. It's what you did with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love that distinction. And, you know, a lot of people out there looking for victimhood stories. They're like, you know, oh, and that's the reason I say it in the beginning is because we don't align in victimhood. We align in victorship, right? Yes. We're victors in our life. And anybody watching this is seeking for answers, right? So they're victors in their own life. And so, you know, I was adopted when I was younger by my mom, wonderful, beautiful angel of a human being, got mixed up with the wrong guy, who was not my father. He adopted me and didn't like me very much. And he adopted me so young, I didn't really know, not really know, I didn't know he wasn't my real dad until I was 17. And all of the abuse that ensued from like 6 years old till when I was 17 culminated in an attempted murder charge of me and my mom. And so there was a lot of abuse. And I remember, like, again, my story, your story, everybody that's listening to our story, is what's the blessing in it? What did you learn out of it? And in that abuse, now, you know, fast forward a little bit, my very first love is working with victims of domestic violence. My second love was feeding people. This is in chronological order, was feeding people through Feed a Billion. And then I got involved in child trafficking. So women, hunger, children, right? The things biblically that I think we're, as men, especially, we're supposed to guard over with our own lives if it's necessary. But back then, you know, my adopted father taught me that violence was the answer, that, you know, anger was the answer. And when he went to prison, I did what I knew. And that's the sentence that I want everybody to hear. We do what we know.
Yeah.
It's not that we're idiots or that we're born evil or we want to be angry or we want to, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, we do what we know, what we're raised around.
Yes.
And so that's what I did. He left. very, very bad guy, dealt drugs, all those other kind of things. And since I was 12, I was delivering drugs for him, you know, fighting a full grown man my entire life. I got really good at collecting money that was owed to people that didn't pay for their drugs. So, you know, that's
Came in
what
handy.
it came in handy. Exactly. And so I was in and out of jail during that period of time. Left high school at 15 years old. Um, and really just was in a life of chaos, because I was doing what I knew. And those behaviors stacked one on top of each other, doing the wrong things lead to results, period. Right? It was just whatever we're doing. And this is for all of us. Whatever we're doing, if you do it long enough, it's going to end in a result. And do you like that result or do you not like that result? So for me, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was a kid. All I just knew was this is the way the world works and this is who I am in it. And if I'm going to be in that world, I'm going to be the scariest, toughest, baddest. My goal back then, Allison, was to go out in a blaze of glory.
Wow.
You know, because that was legend. Like you wanted to go out as a legend. It was like, I'm going to take cops with me. I'm going to take it back. You know, I'm going to take bad guys, all of that stuff. Yeah. And so, but it was people that stepped into my life. It was two things. First, it was the birth of my son. And at a very young age during this period of time that made me question, this is what is going to happen to my son. This is the life he's going to lead.
Right.
And I thought, and it was just milling around. I was like, and I don't know. And again, I know where it came from. My grandmother, whenever I would get beat up really badly, and locked in my room until my face would heal, my grandmother always made sure that I had a Bible in there with me. And so it was interesting how that shows up. I never was religious to any degree, but I read it as a series of stories. It was a way to distract my mind. It was a way to exit my situation. That and a fourth grade teacher named Mrs. Ivy, who taught me to fall in love with the written word, to fall in love with English, to fall in love with definitions, to fall in love with the dictionary, you know.
I can't believe you saying this. I just have to tell you.
Yeah.
I had a fourth grade teacher. Same exact thing. Fall in love. Now I love words, semantics. That's very interesting. Mrs. Shattuck.
They're amazing. For all of you teachers that are out there, it is an amazing blessing that you give people, because you use physicality, you're using violence, all that. It's my uneducated mind, right? That when I started to understand, it gives you the more words that you know, the more ways you have of expressing yourself.
Yes.
Right. It just becomes a mature way, a matured way, or a more advanced, innovative way of being able to communicate how you're feeling and what you're trying to get across to someone. And so thank God for Mrs. Ivy. Thank God for my grandmother. And it just started to, churn a little bit back then. And I was like, I don't know. I just don't want my son growing up. He was so precious and he was so little and he was so vulnerable and he was, and I'm like, I'm going to thrust him into this world of, guns and drugs and, all the other things that go along with it. So the idea was that I didn't know, I didn't have the concept except for stories and through Bibles, like being a good person, being a good man, it meant something different than how I was showing up.
Yeah.
And so around that time, when my son was born, I was like, I think I want to get out of this lifestyle. Didn't have any idea what I was going to do. This is for all of our viewers. Nobody really, like you, a lot of us get to that point where I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just not going to keep doing that.
Yes, exactly. I know exactly what you mean.
You know exactly
That's
what
the
I
moment.
mean. There's a moment.
I just know I don't want this.
And it starts literally, it's there's no like complexity to it. It's just do something different.
Yes.
And so for me, I had my very last drug deal, second to last drug deal. There was a week after my son was born, and it was at that drug deal. I could open up my shirt and show you, but I got stabbed in my last drug deal. and the knife went into my chest. And it was then where these weird moments, right? It was right as the knife went in, this Bible verse popped into my head, and it was the sins of the father are born onto the children.
Yes.
And then it was in that moment that I'm like, whatever I do, I'm done with this. If I survive this, I'm not doing it anymore. And so luckily I survived, and my son was born. And then I had just angel people. You know what I mean by this? Like people that just show up at the right time. Jason, and I had several people at that period of time that showed up in my life. There was coaches, and there was human beings, and, and different people that would show up and just say, look, Jason, I know that whatever you're doing right now, these results that you're getting, this isn't your highest and best. It's not you have so much more potential to you. And I believe that about everybody. Still to this day, I believe it about myself. I believe it about you. I believe it about everybody, that we all have something that God put on our heart that only you can, the person that's watching this, that only you can deliver to the world.
Yes.
At your best, minus your baggage, minus your fears, minus your victimhood, minus what somebody important to you told you to make you believe about yourself, right? There's this deep understanding and yearning for us to be able to bloom into the person that we know and God knows that we were meant to be. But there is some shedding. There's some things that you have to get rid of. And so it didn't change immediately. It was just a series of different decisions. And I left that lifestyle. I got a job that was, $6 an hour or whatever it was, hand peeling the bark off of logs for log cabins, and then I got an upgrade of $2 an hour to work 3 levels deep in a mine, digging out a sump with no sunlight all day in stinky area, but I was making $2 more an hour. Right. and during this, different people coming into my life, the planted seed, I'm meant more for this. I'm meant for more than this.
Yes.
And, started thinking, well, I need to learn a trade, right? I don't have any education. I don't have any connections. I don't have any people to reach out to, except for going back to the violence and the gang lifestyle and the drugs and all that. And so, that led to learning a trade, and it was laying carpet. I became an assistant to somebody tearing up those nasty carpet in people's houses, and, and carrying those big rolls of carpet on my back. And then went into owning my very first carpet company. And, and it kind of went from there. That level. And then I'll stop at one particular area, and we'll talk about other things, but I still took with me, I started doing things differently, but there was still a mentality that traveled with me. My businesses did well, rapidly. I'm like, oh my gosh, people can actually go into business and make this kind of money. Like this, who's going to come and arrest me? This kind of
right.
Shocked. Like, doesn't everybody know you can build your own business and make this kind of dough? Like, well, wow. But what I didn't do was fix the belief systems about who I was, and the poverty scarcity mentality that was programmed into me as a child, that everybody's against you, that all that. I didn't change any of that. My behaviors had changed, but my beliefs hadn't.
Yeah.
So now I've got this money, and now I'm like guilty. I'm like, I don't deserve this. Like, I beat people up when I was before. Yes, I did jail time and all that, but I don't deserve this. I'm a loser because I got called a loser by my adopted father for all those years. You're never going to amount to anything. You're stupid. You're like, those things that are just drilled in, and you carry them around with you. And so what I was doing, I discovered later, I was trying to buy everybody's love. Wow. Look at the house that I have. Look at the boat that I have. Look at the trips that I go on. Look at me. And trying to buy their love. I bought their attention for sure.
Yeah.
I bought their attention for sure. Having parties that were just unbelievable, and a pool and all that kind of stuff. And then you come face to face with those behaviors have to eventually align with your beliefs. And if they don't, there's going to be a cratering moment. And my cratering moment came when I was going through all this, I had started 3 very successful businesses just on sheer will. Like,
Yes.
just, I'm gonna sell and I'm gonna, I'm gonna blah, 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 like many business owners.
Right.
That's it. Right. I'm selling. I'm gonna be successful because I am today.
Yes.
Right. Not anything to do with the future. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I was successful while the money was rolling in. At the instant that it stopped rolling in because there was a dip in the economy, um, I went bankrupt very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. Now I'm realigned with my belief. I'm a loser. I'm
Yes.
crashing all this stuff. I can't hit, all of that other stuff was a facade. Now the real Jason's coming out. Now the real loser's showing up, and everybody's going to see me for who I am. And it was very painful. I went through a divorce. I lost my businesses. I was embarrassed in my community. $2 million in debt. And really just kind of lost my mind. I started having panic attacks, which I didn't even know was a thing at the time. And left in the dead of night. I left in the dead of night. I packed up everything that I had into a U-Haul that I stole. And I drove to California to a place that nobody knew me and got myself with my excess cash, which was like $2,000 or whatever that I had left over, rented an apartment. And slowly that money ran out. And I was having panic attacks. So the only thing I knew how to do was sell at the time. And I couldn't get a job. I couldn't have a conversation with somebody without thinking I was having a heart attack, a brain aneurysm, all this stuff that your mind is so powerful what it can make up.
Yeah.
It got so bad that I was trying to get into the Bible, and there was a moment, one of the scariest moments of my life, even more than contemplating suicide, was when I picked up the Bible and I could not read. I couldn't read the written word.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand the letters. It was jumbled. That's how far stress and this stuff can take you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was about a week after that. Then I was like, I'd been getting eviction notices because my money ran out. I'd sold all my stuff. The only thing I had left to my name was a pistol. And I got kicked out, was living on the beach, became a homeless man, and sat on a cliff one night just saying, I'm of no earthly good to anyone. I'm an embarrassment to my children. I don't know that, at that time I was like, there's not a God. If there was, he wouldn't be letting me go through this. So I'm going to do everybody a favor, and I'm going to pick this particular spot on this cliff. I'm going to kill myself. I'll fall in the ocean. Nobody will ever hear from me again. My kids don't have to see my body. All of those thoughts.
Yes.
And it was sitting on that cliff, getting ready to do that. And I heard audibly the voice of God say, not yet. And, it's hard to, you think you're going crazy. I might've been crazy. I might've made it up in my own, I don't know. I mean, nowadays, because I'm a Christian, I know God is real, and I know Jesus is real, and I know a lot of those things. But then I even whipped around and thought somebody was standing there. That was how real it was to me. And so I was like, then I got pissed, which being pissed, it can come in can come in handy, right?
Yes.
I got pissed. And I was like, okay, not yet, but now what?
Yes.
What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day,
Can I stop you for one moment?
Please.
The only reason I'm stopping you is because I want to highlight that moment that you just described, just for anyone, because there's something that a lot of people don't know, and I want as many people to know as possible. And it's called the suicide mind. And it's my friend wrote a book, Kayla Stuckline. She wrote the book Fear Gone Wild, and her husband died by suicide. And people aren't really hearing much about it, but there is a suicide mind that you just described. And it's the mind and so I'm highlighting it. So if anyone ever has it, they notice it, because when people notice it, they're able to not do it. And it could be that little of a thing. So you were saying that, that people would be better off. You're doing them a favor.
Yes.
That is the voice of a suicide mind. And it's literally a takeover of the mind. So your description of not being able to read, that's another part of it. It's terror taking over. Yeah. And there is zero hope. There is no other option. And the mind believes at that moment that this is the best thing for every person involved, any person that you could know or love, and your mind believes it. The only reason I even actually know this is because I've had moments of that in my life. So, and God, I think God allowed me. He opened up the door to let me see it so I actually could be able to share more about it. But when you just described that, any person, whether previously, currently, or in the future, that comes to you, I'm telling on it. It is a suicide mind that's a takeover of you and who you are, and it's not true. And then what you just said, the following thing was your anger makes so much sense because now there's still no hope, but it's not yet.
Yeah. So interesting. Like, I said, I got angry. And the next day, because I was living literally, like you hear the jokes, or you see it on TV, like people living on a bench. I was living on a bench. Thank God it was a bench on a beach, but there was some great restaurants that would feed me.
You got to be on a bench.
You got to be on a bench somewhere. And I went to, there was a homeless shelter that I had avoided going to because even back then I was still, even at that point, that low point in my life, I was still prideful, and I think that God beats the pride out of us. We either get rid of our pride on our own or God does what he got to do to take it.
Yes.
Because if you're walking around with any kind of pride, and I'm not talking about pride in a job well done. I'm talking about pride as in I'm better than anybody else or, blah, 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 because it's not helpful, right? It's not helpful. And so I still had that pride where I'm like, I'm not one of those homeless, I'm not one of those. This is just a temporary dip. Well, when you have literally nothing to your name, $2 million in debt, you've left anybody you ever know, and you have no room over your head, roof over your head, and you cannot feed yourself, shows up. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to this homeless shelter that was put on there in Southern California that was sponsored at the time by Pastor Rick Warren and his church. And there was a really great pastor, never forget him, that was there. And he just spoke to me that day. I went in, I waited for everybody else to leave. And I'll never forget, there was 2 things left on the shelf for me to choose from because of my pride wouldn't let me go in there when all of the other people, when they opened the doors. And it was rotten bananas and that cauliflower that had the black mold on the outside of it. Those were my 2 choices. And, but at that point, he just started talking to me and we just started having a conversation. And he was like, I'd love to help you out. And he goes, I've got an extra Bible here. And he pushed it across and I tossed it back to him. And I go, look, I've read the Bible. None of that crap works. I was going to church, right? Back when I went through my crash, and they were great when I was donating to the church. But when I lost everything, nobody stepped up. I became a pariah. Yeah. And so anyway, so then he handed me this book from Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. It was this thick book. And I'm like, who's this guy? Right. So I took it with me. I read it over the course of the next few days and was walking down the street one day. And I saw this yellow poster board on the wall with Tony's face on it. And it said, Unleash the Power Within live event. Tony's going to be there, blah, blah, blah. It was $300 or something like that. Might as well have been $1 million because I'm living on the street. I just begged for rotten bananas. So, long story short is when I told you it was the second to last drug deal I did, I went on the beach and I found everybody that I could that was trying to sell weed. And I sold it for them so that I could make enough money to go to that event. Wow. And went to that event. There's a really funny story here that I was still carrying around my wallet that had credit cards that were long they're long done, right? But it was like I kept them as a tether to my former life. Like I had been successful. I did have money. I did have credit, but they were worthless, right?
Yeah.
But and so back then, nowadays they've got those instant, you put your credit card in, you pay for whatever it is, and it's instantly taken off your card. And they instantly, more importantly, know that you don't have any room on your credit card. If that's the case.
Yes.
Back then they had those machines that did the imprint, right?
They don't know.
And so at the end, they're like, Tony Robbins, you get to meet him up on stage if you just pay this $12,000 for, Master University. And I go sprinting to the back of the room and I'm like, put it all on this card.
I love that. That's where your criminal mind came in. It helped you.
It was like, I got to meet this guy. There's something to it.
Yeah.
And so they're like, chink, chink. Okay, here's your number. Right. They put you off of the stage. I go walking up and Tony comes along and, he shakes my hand and his fingers go like up to the middle of my arm. Right. Yeah. And he's like shaking my hand. And I'm like, I said in the moment, I'm going to pay you back for this. Cause over the course of those 3 or 4 days or whatever his event was, I knew that my life was different because I had a different perspective. Right. I did it. And then also I had some tools to be able to deal with what was going on in my life and my mind and my spirit. And so I said, I'm going to pay you back. And he reaches back and, he leans back a little bit, still shaking my hand. He goes, I believe you. That was it. I heard, I believe in you.
Yes, I get it.
And when somebody of substance says that they believe in you, whether he didn't say that, but that's what I heard.
Yes.
It also elevates, right? That's why we have to be so good to everyone that we meet, that we have to be such a light, whether we feel like we're being a light or not. We don't know if you're going to be that person that's going to make the difference between, God forbid, suicide, but the multitude of layers of other bad decisions, like, telling somebody that looks down, hey, I love you, or randomly hugging people or high-fiving them or giving that homeless person $5 and, they're going to buy alcohol with it. So what?
Exactly.
Maybe that the time that you were able to hand them $5 and tell them, hey, I hope life gets better for you. Let me say a prayer for you. Whatever that may be is just the humanity, which we live in a time and age when humanity is trying to be flushed out of us, replaced with AI, replaced with technology, replaced with machine learning, replaced with robots, replaced with a distance between us and our customers through technology. We live in a day and age which is really challenging the humanity of humanity.
Yeah.
So the best thing that I could find and have found in my life is to constantly be present, right? Yes. You're like, thank you for coming on the show. There's no place I'd rather be than here with you right now. I'd rather be in the studio with you, but this is a great second. I'm not worried about what's coming next. I'm not thinking about what happened before this show. I'm with you because this is our moment for all of us to be together.
Yes. Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book. And then I realized, how is that right? To keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts or things and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it.
And so, that moment with Tony completely transformed my life. I had some money left over. I was able to go to the thrift store and buy white shirt, this red tie that had burned cigarette holes in the bottom of it, this nasty pair of blue pants, and a crappy pair of shoes. And I went to go find a job. I was like, I know that I now have at least control, and it didn't stop the panic attacks right away. They didn't stop right off the bat. But because I had to reprogram, right? I had to rebuild. And, but I ended up getting a job, selling Fords. I went into a BMW dealership, was my first one. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? I just look like a hobo. You know what I mean? I look sharper than I did on the beach, but I look like a hobo. And then Mercedes, and they just kept going, get out of here. I walked into Ford, and it's because they don't sell any Fords in Southern California. The guy's like, if you can fog a mirror, I'll take you.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So that started. And then I was like, I want to go to work for Tony. I want to go to work for Tony.
Oh God, I love that.
And started calling the office and started doing this and that. And eventually, remember that bad credit card? I was eventually through the selling cars. $8,947.32 was my first check from the first month of selling. And so eventually I was able to pay for Master University. And they have this event, and Tony had two jobs every time I would call. One was internal sales on the phone, and the other one was being a speaker for them. As he would go into a city, we would be, they would be putting these called FSRs ahead of him to go sell tickets for him to then come in. Yeah. And so you had to go do Tony Robbins speeches for all these businesses, before he came into town. Oh, wow. And I was like, hell no, I'm scared to death to speak in front of people. That one I'm not going to do. And the internal sales one really didn't have any sort of upward momentum for what I wanted to do with my life. So anyway, fast forward that to I'm on one of the trips. Master University has like 3 different trips to it. I end up in Vieques, Puerto Rico with Lauren LaHave. And she's the wife of Tony Robbins' first employee. Oh. And she's putting on the event. She's doing the event called Life Mastery in Puerto Rico. And we go to dinner one night, and she's sitting at the head of the table, and I'm sitting right over here to her side. And she says, Jason, tell me your stories. There's a lot of people are talking about where you came from and, gangster this and gangster that. And so we just got to talking. She's like, well, where are you headed? What are you doing? I said, I really want to work for Tony. And she's like, oh, you do? Right? Beep, 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 boop.
Oh my God.
Right? It's on. Hey, I've got this young man here that wants a job, et cetera, et cetera. And then she takes the phone and she covers it and she goes, okay, he's got a job. You've got to go, present for it, et cetera, et cetera. And I go, what job? And she goes, the speaker job. And I'm like, I'm waving her off. I'm like, I can't do that job. And so she looks me dead in the eyes. The only time I'm going to cuss on your show, looks me dead in the eyes. And she said, Jason, don't be a pussy. Do you want the job or not?
Love it.
And I'm like, I'm sort of an ex-gangster here. Like, you don't talk to me like that. But I was like, I'm not no pussy. I'll do it.
Right. Yes.
So then, I have to memorize this script and go show up to present in front of Tony and his vice president of sales, who's now a dear friend of mine, Gene McNaughton. And I have to go present in front of them this memorized script. And I'm sitting, I go and I buy this. It's the worst suit, Allison. Oh my God. I have it still just because I'm going to frame it at some point.
Yes.
But it was like the cheapest one I get, but I wanted to get, and it was this like ugly olive green, didn't fit. It was like this whole, again, looking like a
Yes.
hobo in a suit that somebody, I don't know. So I go and I'm at the back seat and I'm watching the other people that are auditioning for the job. And you see this beautiful woman like go across, and she's been on this show and she's done this and she's done that. She's nailing the points and she's saying boom, and she's like boom, and I'm in the back going wow, like whatever she's selling I'm buying, right? And then I watch another guy that go across, and he's handsome and tan and his perfect hair and his custom suit, and he's like boom, and he's nailing the audience and staring people in the eye, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? So,
I love this.
and I was the last sort of like plug in, and I'm sitting at the last seat and the right near the door. My mind goes out the door, my body goes up on stage.
Wow.
And because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I got up on stage in front of the little microphone thing, completely forget the entire script.
Oh yeah.
Completely forgot it. And I stood there for what seemed like an hour, but it was like probably 20 or 30 seconds. And I just snapped out of it and I said, you know what? I've completely forgotten the script, but Tony, here's what your content means to me. And here's how it's changed my life. And I went boom, 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 get done. He's crying. Everybody's in the room's crying, and they're like, you're hired. So then I went on the road with Tony, for a few years. And I took that opportunity, to start really interviewing. I had these 3 notebooks from my failures, and I had taken really great notes, and I kept them with me. Like that, these were the things that stayed with me. And when I was on the road with Tony, I was in the presence of some of the greatest business minds that the planet has ever seen, right? Either friends of his or, places that I was going in to speak to the owners. And I would say, I'll take you out to dinner. I'll wash your bathrooms. I'll take out your trash. Whatever it is, just give me 15 minutes. And what would you have done about this scenario? So I ended up with 3 other notebooks.
What a great idea.
Right? What not to do, which is, by the way, what has made me the most money in my life is what not to do.
Yes.
And then the what to do was the right things, the right decisions, and that kind of thing to make. And I thought I was going to be leaving Tony. When I left, I thought I wanted to be the next Tony Robbins. There's never, ever going to be another Tony Robbins, ever. And I'm certainly not tall enough to be him. Right. But it became clear after doing a few events of my own and stuff that it wasn't my passion. It wasn't where my heart was, but I didn't know what else to do. And I got a phone call from a friend of mine that knew me when I went through my first bankruptcies. This is how God orders our steps so perfectly. Yes. Like we always think about failure, and everything is actually perfect. It's actually perfect. And so he goes, I'm going through some stuff that you went through in one of your bankruptcies, and I need your help. And I was like, okay, I'll come and help. He's like, I'll pay you. And I'm like, great. And I get to thinking to myself, well, if I really help you, can I get a part of the win, right? The upside. Yeah. He's like, hell yeah, I'm like going out of business here. if you not only I'll pay you a little bit, to help me, but then obviously I'll pay you some of the success fee. So that started, and then I did a great job for him, help somebody else. I became a turnaround specialist. Didn't even know that there was such a thing, but it was those 2 sets of notebooks that helped launch me into that area. Because now I know, I'm like going in, I'm like, okay, you're doing this, you're doing that. And that started to build out a system, right? In business, you either have a system or you have a happy accident.
Yes.
And sometimes those happy accidents turn into bankruptcies, right? Or burnout or whatever hits you. So then I ended up with a system. I'm like, okay, I've made everybody else a lot of money. I'm going to go start doing this for myself. Start buying companies of my own. And back when I went through my first crash, one of the things I wanted to avoid was having to put in 18-hour days. I had a cot in my business for my son to sleep on. I would get done working on plans at night, right? And then just put my head down on the thing. He'd be sleeping there, wake up, get the crews out, on their jobs over and over and over again. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want a life.
Right.
Right. I want a life. And so anyway, so that led into, buying and selling or buying my own companies and building up a really nice portfolio that I sold back in 2019. A few years before that, we started a consulting company, which is doing fantastic, helping a lot of people. And, and there's been a lot of stuff. So I'll kind of stop talking right there, but that's where we're at.
Okay. There are so many things that you said that I felt like there was a swoosh of like a highlight over it, probably by God, because I just see like the whole, and it's so interesting when someone comes on a podcast, or I just always know somehow it's going to align with something I'm being shown maybe the day before, or, and maybe it's God preparing me. I don't know, but I just love everything you said. And the thing that just highlighted, which I'm assuming you already know this, but it just was like, whoosh, like turnaround specialist. But that's from the time you're a little boy.
Amen.
You're a turnaround specialist. Like that is just wow. And like we all have to be that.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, like, you would think there was some things that I heard you say that you said, buying my freedom, not the acceptance of others. That's one thing that stood out to me. Another thing that you said, and this was what, like, I feel like God, it was a very spiritual moment for me that God just yesterday highlighted. And you know something, but then you hear it in this other God way that then it's like
100%.
Like lit up.
Yep.
And it's this, I always believe I live a life of adding value wherever I go. I don't care where I am.
Yep.
Head, heart, feet, same spot. I'm going to give where I am. Doesn't matter, because that's where I am, right? Yep. So I love that. But then when you said slaves can't free people, and this is what God showed me. So I feel like this is all the same, like related, that we can't give, obviously, away what we don't have. And your life, Jason, is a life of stored up deposits. Getting punched in the face as a kid is a deposit in this being a person who can transform other lives, and just being in a homeless shelter. What I tell people, and this is not to talk about me, it's just to relate to you,
sure,
is that like I was hospitalized forever ago with an eating disorder, right? For when I was in my 20s. And I never thought I'd ever get better, ever. I thought I would always be destined to this. I was sexually abused, all these like crazy things in my life. And I never thought I would ever have things that other people have. When I was able to recover from an eating disorder, I was like, you know what? I own this land now.
Yep.
I want to curse. I own that effer. I'm like, I own that. So now I can tell you that you can get better.
Right.
So you being homeless, you being bankrupt, you being any of the things that you've been, punched as a kid, all this shit that people go through,
yep.
You are the evidence of hope. Yep. You're the man who heard God, and you know in a suicide mind that there's another alternative. And by the way, just for people who are listening, I am a person that you could seek out for help with suicide. So I can speak.
Oh, that's right.
You're like, we're not doctors.
You're that person.
Right. Okay. Speak for yourself.
I forgot. Completely forgot.
I'm like, wait, don't I own counseling?
I'm so in the moment where I'm like, you have to say that you're not a doctor. And I'm like, oh, you actually are trained for this.
I was actually thinking when you said, I'm like, oh, that could like slow things down a little bit. It might even make things easier for me. So I didn't no, I'm just kidding. But anyhow, there were things, and you talked about like Elon Musk saying, when is enough? Like you were saying, like, when is enough is enough. And he said, you heard him say on Clubhouse that I wouldn't suggest it. And Ed Milet and Andy Frisella on a call with us in Arete. No, it wasn't on a call. They were talking about if I had to do it again. And these guys are like almost billionaires, whatever. So successful. And they're like, I don't know. That hits me so hard. And I've been saying that to myself. So now you're in this place where you're showing people actual freedom, like real, true freedom, not all this external. Yes. Yeah. I don't want to be one of those people who doesn't have that beautiful freedom in life, right?
It's stepping back to, the phrase, right, which was, I heard from Pastor Rudy Gonzalez. He's the founder of CERT Ministries, which is the rescue team that we do work with, right? And he told me one day, we were talking about a lot of different subjects, and probably one of my podcasts that I did with him. But, and I've been in some of the darkest, craziest situations with this man, bulletproof vests on, and, waiting to see stuff, and, and getting shot at, all the different things that happen when you're out rescuing children. And we were talking one night, just in the vehicle. I think it was on a surveillance thing. And he said to me, Jason, slaves cannot free other slaves. And it
Yes.
was like, it stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it over and over and over again. And I'm thinking to myself, wow. And it's not just a slave. Like, yes, there are slaves. There are children that are in slavery. There's women of abuse that are in slavery. There's, labor slavery. There's genuine slavery. But
Yes.
I started thinking outside of that box a little bit, going, what else are we slave to? We're slave to, for instance, what everybody sees on Instagram from the influencers and what's supposed to be successful, and the jets and the boats. And then if not, you're a freaking loser, and you have to sacrifice, and you have all this other stuff you hear from these idiots, right? And they're just idiots that haven't learned the truth yet. So I'll give them grace, because I was given a lot of it.
Yeah,
but the idea is that we're enslaved to an idea about us that doesn't belong to us, right? Our life, our freedom means something. It's as different as the 8 billion people that could watch the show, right? Everybody has their own version of freedom. And the challenge, and I think the real destruction, is that people never stop and say, what does my freedom look like for me?
You asked us that.
We put together these dream boards, right? Which is great. I mean, having vision and visuals is very helpful in trying to determine. But that vision board that most people are looking at is other people's shit.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be what I want.
Yes.
Right? It may not be what I want. And so it comes down to, what is it for myself, my family, for the people that are around me? But what does that add up to be? And then what else are we enslaved to? We're enslaved to the what everybody else thinks about us.
Oh my God. Yes.
Right? We're supposed to be who I am, right? There's this version of Allison that makes everybody feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the real Allison, right? And if you were to be this person, a lot of these people are going to freak out, going, who the F are you?
Yes.
Right. And then you're like, but I'm meant to evolve. I'm not that person anymore. I'm like over here. I'm doing new things. I'm thinking new things. I've positioned myself differently. I'm not that person. But we get called back into it, because the most painful thing for us is the loss of love of those that we love.
Yeah.
Right. And so we put ourselves in slavery to that.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Allison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe, if you could, to YouTube, Allison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.